You ready for this? All right. The statements issued by hosts, co-hosts, guests, and anyone else appearing on the show do not reflect the stance of the College of New Jersey or the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Hey listeners, Brian from the future. Be sure to catch up on part 1 before diving into this episode. This is the second installment of a 3-part series featuring Paul Day. You can find the link to part 1 in the description below. All right, so let's get into your early life, your educational journey. You were just talking about you'd want to be back in school. Let's start at the beginning. You were born in Jamaica. You moved to the U.S. For treatment with your retinoblastoma. Can you tell us about your early experiences with technology, with accessibility? You grew up in the Philadelphia area, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. My early experience, like I remember going to school. It was strictly Braille books. I remember going to classroom and like my math book would take up a whole entire wall, maybe 3 or 4 shelves up, right? And and there you start learning, responsibility. I was mainstreamed from the beginning, so I was the only blind kid inside of my elementary school. So I had to learn how to make friends. I had to learn how to let the teacher know exactly what I needed. I you know had a TBI that would come once a week or so, or two times a week, depending from the beginning. And then as I moved on, to teach me my Braille and my flashcards and learning my letters and using my Braille writer. And then moving from there, when the technology started coming out, I think my next piece of technology is I transitioned to Overbrook Educational Center, which is which was a hybrid school. It was a school in Philadelphia that had people with visual impairments, but also people or students from the neighborhood that didn't have visual impairments, and we were all mixed in together. So they had the technology. The teachers were trained with Braille and things like that. So we were integrated within the classroom. So we got exposed to more and more technology there. So that's where I got my hands on the first type and speak and that iteration of it. Didn't have a Braille display on it. It was strictly the speech feedback, but it had like the 6-key Braille keyboard on that. And we had a couple of those. I think they had one called a Keynote, I think was the next one I was at the same time. It was more like a laptop looking type of thing. Braille and print was a Braille writer attached to a printer. So as you typed and you hit return on the Braille writer, it spit out the same print, so a teacher could then read it. We tried our tricks, right? We tried, if you didn't do your homework, you would say, oh, I don't know what happened. The file must have got deleted, right? Or I can't print this, right? And I used that when I was a technology trainer, because I would go to schools with students. They would try the same stuff, and I would go to them. I would whisper, I was like, you can't try that with me, because I already tried that when I was in school. So let's not do that, right? Yeah. So then as I went through school there, in high school, I went to Lawrenceville Prep here in Jersey for my freshman year. And there I started getting introduced. I think JAWS was just coming out right about then. Because I remember having a computer on my desk, and I can't remember whether it talked to me fully or not, whether I was using like a version of DOS or something like that. But I know I still had a portable Braille note taker with me at that point in time as well. But then I left there and came back to Philadelphia, and I did 3 years at Overbrook School for the Blind there. And that's really where I got really introduced hardcore to assistive technology, and my passion for it really grew. Because I was very fortunate that they gave us computers at our desk, and each computer had JAWS on it, and we had access to Braille embossers. So I got to then start learning how to use JAWS, and this is like 1990 something. So like really when JAWS came
Mhm.
out, we had it right up, and the internet. So I was on the internet way before like accessibility was even like a thing, right? I was
Yeah.
on like the raw internet, AOL type of internet back then.
Did you have a MySpace?
I did not have a
Uh,
MySpace. I did not have MySpace. But I got to play around with that because at that point in time, to me, that opened up the world to me. The
Mhm.
Absolutely.
the internet. I was able to now do research, right? I was able to go and no longer have to rely on whether RFD had that particular book on cassette. Um, and as you haven't figured out about me yet, I'm a very curious person. I can go down some very
Yeah.
crazy, wacky paths. So, for one of my research papers in high school, I wanted to do research on the F-15 Strike Eagle because my passion was always to join the military. That was just a career path that I, to this day, sort of feel it in my bones, and what sort of drives what I do now. Sort of my passion to serve. Um, so everyone else is doing, typical, oh, I will research the planets. I'm going to research, history. I'm doing the Strike Eagle or the Osprey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to go on the internet and find that information. So that really opened the world to me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to really like dive deep into this JAWS thing and then this internet thing. Um, and then as I went to college now, I was able to go and meet with my disability service coordinator there, and again, I was the first blind person that was going to be attending that school. And I had a very cool director there. As he sat down with me, and we talked about what I needed. And one very important thing with that is that I did not wait until the first day of school to have this conversation. I went midsummer. I went way before anybody else was going to be there because I wanted to make sure that they had time to get me what I needed and it would be in place when I got there. So I had to go do a little bit different than some of my other students or peers might have had to do,
Mhm.
but I was more focused on making sure that I could be the best person that I could be because I never wanted someone to say, "Oh, that's why he couldn't do it because he's blind." Couldn't do it because I was stupid, then that's fine, right? Just not smart enough, fine, right?
Mhm.
That's on me.
Mhm.
But never it's going to be because, oh, it's because he's blind. That's why he couldn't do it. Because no, that's not it. So give me the equal playing field, and then let me then have to compete with, with everybody else. So I went there ahead of time, spoke with her, made sure that they knew what I was going to need, the technology that I was going to need, exactly how to get it if they didn't know how to get it, what I was going to be able to bring with me because of like being a part of the, Commission for the Blind or anything that like
Mhm.
what they would be able to offer, who they needed to speak to there as well, right? This is who you need to talk to. Um, so you almost have to become your own CEO, right?
Mhm.
So, sort of making sure that the different pieces around you are sort of operating and flowing. And it doesn't always go right. It didn't always go right, but you at least have to try and sort of make it work. Um,
Well, Paul, one thing that I wanted to pull out from here, that kind of transition from high school into college, one of the things that is really coming through very clearly to me is thinking ahead and planning, right? Like you mentioned, that you went to the school over the summer, that you sort of had this idea. So you had a goal for yourself, and then you thought about the steps that you needed to take for that to be a successful transition. And recently, we've been talking quite a bit about students who are transitioning from K 12 to whatever after high school, right? A vocational school, a 2-year school, a 4-year school, straight into the workforce. So I like to highlight this idea of, and your phrase of like, become your own CEO, kind of have this plan, and whatever it is, right? 4-year colleges are not for everybody, whether you have a disability or not. So whatever it is, you want to be that kind of have that plan to make your transition successful. So would you say that's what it sounds like to me, that that's what helped you be successful? And yes, there's bumps along the way and nothing ever goes exactly. But it sounds like that was helpful to being
You're
successful.
absolutely right. Yeah. You got to have a goal, have a plan, and also
Mhm.
be flexible, right? Because, like you said,
Mhm.
like things aren't always going to go right. They're going to be setbacks, just like in anybody's life. But you got to be able to adapt and then get past that. But you can't go there without a plan. Like there's one thing that I've learned and I continue to learn. Like no one's going to give you anything that you don't ask for, right? Like
Mhm.
um
This is so
say
true. The
Right.
answer can never be yes to
Yeah.
a question that you don't ask.
right.
I say that to my kids all the time.
Great.
and
Yeah.
it's in marriages too, right? Like
Yes.
like your wife or your husband or your partner is not going to know what you want or need or what they're not providing for you if you don't tell them, right?
Mhm.
So all of
Yep.
these things transition across every aspect of your life. So as soon as you can realize that, you got to start practicing that. And I tell my kids as well, it's like, you may be afraid to ask for something, but if you don't ask, like it's guaranteed no, right? Like
Yeah.
if I'm
Right.
holding $1 in my hand and you want that dollar, you never asked me for it, then
Right.
you're never going to get it. If you
100%.
like, you got a 50-50 chance of getting this dollar if you ask me for it. You got a
Mhm.
100% chance of not getting it if you don't ask me for it. So
That
go
is
ask for it, and if they say no, you you have a good case of why you need it. Go, hey, well, this is why I need it. This is why it will benefit me. Um, and I've always sort of done that. I'll share one quick story about that, and that happened to me in college, where it wasn't the norm at the time, but I was living on campus, and where my school was located was on a very crazy sort of street area there, where you had to cross this really basically like an off ramp on a highway almost, like, and it was no light there. The light was all the way down at the corner, and I had actually ended up getting hit by a car there.
Oh, no.
But I always wanted to, like, came a time I was like, look, I want to move off campus, right? Because it's better for me if I'm off campus and I almost commute on here. I was about to be a junior at that time. So I went. This is my goal. I wanna move off campus. I want to commute in, right? I think it'll be a better experience for me. So I went and I looked up how much the Commission for the Blind was paying for my in-room tuition, right? How much they were paying to board me at this college, at my college. And then I went and I looked at the complex that I wanted to move into and how much rent would be.
Mhm.
And it turned out that rent, it will be half as much as they were paying for me to stay in this little tiny room.
For sure.
And so I met with my counselor from the Commission for the Blind, sat him down, and if I love this guy to death. I hope he hears this podcast. He'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But I gave him, I don't know if I was his favorite. I don't know if I was his favorite person to have, because I gave him a hard time most of the time, because I always
Well,
said,
no, you
I always-
advocated for yourself
Yeah,
and you
I
pushed for
advocated for
what you
myself.
thought was appropriate.
right.
But keep going.
So
Keep
he
going.
So I get him to come all the way over to Philadelphia, right? Like, I'm a trek for him as well. So he comes into my room, and I proposed this to him. Like, I sat down, I proposed it, I pitched it, and I laid out numbers, and I laid out the plans, and I can hear him think, like, as soon as he didn't immediately say no, I was like, I got him, right? I got him. So he came back a couple weeks later, he was like, okay, we're gonna do it. It makes sense. And then I was able to move out and get my own apartment the next year. So if I would have sat there and been like, no, he's going to say no. Like,
Right.
he
Mhm.
doesn't like me. Let me ask my friends, what do they think? They think he's going
Right.
to do it. Everyone's, no, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I'm going to try, right? The worst he can say is like, no. And
Mhm.
my butt's back on campus, the next year, right? But no, I got the apartment, and they they paid for it. So, and then a few other students after that were able to do the same thing, because it logically made sense. Like, why are you paying this much money for me to stay in a room? And I can understand my freshman and like my sophomore year, because you want to be there, and it's best for you to do that. But as a junior, I was coming back from studying abroad. It's like it's just no more for me to stay here on campus and waste your money.
Where did you study abroad?
I got to go to London.
Ooh,
Did a
that's
semester in London. Yeah. That I would say was a very big part of my journey, and transition to independence for me. That was probably the thing in my life that has scared me the most, besides having kids, right? Those little humans that you all of a sudden become responsible for.
Yes.
With no playbook, or too many playbooks. Mother-in-law telling you this one, and this one's telling you.
Yeah.
Also true. Also true.
So having the opportunity to do that, I got a chance to go over freshman year. You had to have a high GPA to be able to qualify to go over there for spring break, and I was I believe I was on the dean's list by freshman year. So I got to go, and I loved it over there. So I was like, okay, if I had the opportunity to study, I want to come back here and study. But I knew that was going to be the biggest challenge in the world for me, because school there is not like school here. You're not on a campus. You're not in dorms. You're placed, well, you say you're in dorms, but you're placed in apartments, right?
Mhm.
You are in
Mhm.
apartments. There's no RA. There's no like cafeteria. So you're going to have to shop for yourself. You're going to have to cook and clean and coexist with other roommates in this apartment. I'm also going to a foreign country, so I'm not going to get any mobility training.
Mhm.
I'm going to have to come out of my shell and be able to make friends. When we first got there, we didn't go right to school. We had to um, spend some time with the host families. I was in the south of England, down in Penzance, and then we went somewhere in the north, and then we finally got separated with our separate schools. And I wasn't going with anyone else from my college. I was meeting up with a group of kids from around the country. So I did not know anyone. But in my head, I'm like, okay, if I survive this, if I manage to put all the things I've learned so far in my life, with my mobility skills, my technology skills, my social skills, and take this overseas and survive and come back, I'm golden. I can then live alone. I can then
Mhm.
get that apartment. Um, so I had to get myself to the airport. No one met me there, because the instructions were, we'll meet you on the other side in London, find the bus, we'll meet you on the bus.
Mhm.
We were also flying out right after 9/11. I think we
Mm.
were maybe the first airplane that left out of Newark after they opened up the
Oh, wow.
airspace. We
Wow.
weren't even sure whether we were going to still go or not. My family didn't want me to go, but I was like, I gotta go, right? This was something that I had to prove to myself. I was cutting all the safety lines. I was hanging it out there.
You were
Um,
curious.
I was curious and I was scared, right? But I
Mhm.
had to prove it. I had to prove it to myself that I could actually do it. Talking the talk when you're close to home, or something happens, you can just quickly call your family and they can come rescue you. Or this was removing the safety net. Um, so yeah, from the beginning, I had the first time I got through that airport, I had to make sure that, I had it set up where I can get to the airplane and let the, airline know that I needed help getting to the plane and getting off the plane, and then finding the bus, right? And getting on that bus and sitting on that bus. I was like, I made it. I'm in London. They're strangers, but I'm here. And then
Wow.
person sitting next to me, I had to say, hi, my name is Paul. What's your name? And blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. Do you mind if I walk with you? This is how, I need you to guide me. Like, no, I don't need anything special, right? Because I need to put them at ease. This is the first time they're interacting with a blind person, right? They don't know anything about sighted guide, right? Um, and I had to make friends. And then because we're going out to clubs, we're hanging out and doing all this cool stuff. So like coming back from that study abroad experience, I came back with a extra sense of confidence, independence, and that really started me on the path to where I am now. Just navigating everything that happened to me over there, and solving challenges, and having success over there, really really shaped me. And I recommend all the parents listening to this podcast right now, like take the visual impairment away from your kid and allow them to experience the same things that any other kid would experience. Allow them to make those mistakes because it's only going to make them stronger. They're only going to learn from it. And being a person with a disability, sometimes you may need those to sort of overcome them, to sort of prove yourself to yourself, to make it easier for you to encounter the rest of the stuff that you may not have control over, um, to help you get over those type of things. So don't be afraid to make your kid fail or have the potential of failing,
Mm,
because it's only going to make them stronger.
hmm
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mm.
Um, I think we wanted to pivot a little bit to talk about your career path.
Mhm.
You have a super impressive journey from disability youth coordinator, working for the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, and AT trainer. Um, following college, or even in college, if you had any internship experiences, what were those job experiences like, and how did you find your entry point into the tech and accessibility field?
My journey was not an easy one. Um, and again, my initial career, or my passion was to do something around like the military, law, intelligence, that type of stuff. I knew I couldn't be a soldier, right? And at that point in time, late '90s, early 2000s, you know, I didn't know anything about the military beyond soldier to even say, okay, are there other career paths in there for me, that might be different now, but back when I was growing up, it wasn't something that our career counselors
hmm
were pushing for me to even try, right? And I had the unfortunate circumstances keep happening to me that every single career aptitude test I took, no matter how I tried to change my answers, kept coming up military, law enforcement, blah, blah, blah.
mm,
So
hmm
my brain is just like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? I don't want to do anything else, right? I don't, other people, oh, be a psychologist, okay, that's good for you. There's a path for that. Me, I don't want to do anything else. So like now I have to choose something. Now I have to find something I don't want to do just because I need to have a career, right? So I had a lot of mental struggles, right? Because like when you feel something, and you know that you're not going to be able to do something that that you're made for. So
Mhm.
I had to really struggle with that. I did always like law. So I was like, okay, I'll go political science and I'll try to get into like the CIA, FBI, do intelligence work that
That's what
way.
you majored in college, political science?
Yeah, I majored in political science. Um, so I did that. I loved law. I loved constitutional law and different things like that. But then again, when I was coming out of college, again, it was during time right after 9/11. Everyone was going to law school. So now there was more people applying for law schools than than there were slots. We actually had someone come and speak to our senior class, and it was just like, yeah, this may not be the time to go to law school, right? Like the
mm,
tuition was getting jacked up for even like the smallest colleges, right? Where so I'm like, okay, I guess law is not good for me right now. I I could not just walk over to my career services and say like, hey, I need an internship, right? Because again, they didn't know where to put me, and I had other professors that I had relationships with that tried to find me internships. So I didn't have the benefit of having an internship as I came through college. Um, so what I did, was make sure that I sort of like researched things and sort of learned things on my own. Um, and I started, I was helping a lot of my friends that were going through issues. I don't know if they thought I was a lawyer because I was taking political science and I was like having law classes, but s- in Philadelphia, they were having some issues. One friend was having issues. They got kicked off a bus because they had a guide dog. And they're like, "Can we sue?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is not right. This is your rights." So I always knew rights and the laws around things. And I'm like, "Can you go with me down there?" I was like, "I'm not a lawyer, man. I'm in college. I can't represent you." Um, but I started doing things like that and sort of helping other people like advocate, you know, for themselves and and I was like, all right. Um, and even then when I was gonna be thinking about law, I was like, but what kind of law would I want to do? I'm like, I I I can't do law around accessibility, right? There's nothing around that. Like, I never knew that. I don't even think that they did accessibility law back then. If they did, I don't know. It wasn't taught in any of my classes to let me know that that was a possible career path. I was like, maybe I do immigration law. I was like, but can I really see myself doing that for a long time? So even that career, I was just like, I just don't know what kind of law I, I would do. So when I graduated with my nice shiny degree, I was stuck for a while. I was like, what do I want to do? So I I tried to start a couple. I had an idea to start a business. Like, okay, I like business. I like sort of like problem solving things. So I had an idea of starting a vodka company. But I was thinking, okay, but how can I innovate around that? I was like, let's get the purest vodka that possibly could be, um, and put flavors in it. Let's do flavored vodka, and then I can pitch that to other colleges and have it in clubs and things like that. So I started trying to work around that. I got surveys together and sent them out to people that I knew and try to get data on like what flavors that they liked. And I was like researching different, distilling methods. So I was going down that route. But I'm like, who's going to give me money? Like, how do I get the money to start my company? Like, how do I finance that? And I come from a poor background. So people in my family aren't business owners or don't know about how to start a business or getting venture capital and things like that. So I'm trying to figure this all out on my own. I'm like, where, like, okay, I need clean water. I'm in Philadelphia. That's okay, whatever. Can't get it from here. So where can I ship in water from? So how to write a business plan. And I'm just like, all right, but I still got to pay rent, right? So like, how am I going to do all this? And I still need to pay rent. So I take advantage of the commission, the version of the Commission for the Blind that's in Pennsylvania. I forget what they're called. And I sit down with a counselor to try to help find me a job, right? Because I need a job. And before that, I went to try to go get a job at UPS. I tried to go get a job loading trucks, right? Something I've done in high school. And I get to the interview, and as soon as I walk in, I have my cane in my hand. I go there with my brother, and on the way in there, I actually meet the lady that's would be my supervisor, and she was very happy. She's like, "Oh, I would love to have you there." Blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, this is looking good, right? You're always nervous, like, am I going to get told I can't do it because I'm blind? So I was very enthusiastic about it, and I get to the interview, and the person there, first word he says out of his mouth is like, how are you? I don't think you're going to be able to do this job.
Oh no.
He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know how you can do it. Like, I wouldn't be able to do it if I couldn't see. So I don't know how you're going to be able to do it. And I'm sitting there like, well, then I go into like advocacy mode. Well, I've done this before, and you don't need to see to move boxes down a conveyor belt and load them. into a truck, and he's like, well, how are you gonna get down out of the truck? I'm like, you just step down. So I ended up leaving that job, and then it's not until it happens that you sit down and you think, like, man, what the hell just happened to me? I think I was discriminated against, right? Like, this guy just came right out, and I knew something was wrong because after he said it, he left, and he was speaking to someone else. I don't know what they heard through the door, and I think they were probably told him, like, you can't say that to this kid. This kid could sue you. But at that point in time, like, I didn't have I didn't have like the strength to be like, I had to go through this whole process of like filing a lawsuit against this company, right? Like, I need a job, right? Their loss, right? But yeah, so that was like a blatant discrimination thing that happened to me when I was going for a job. So this counselor identifies a position that's opening with an independent living center, the largest one in Philadelphia that had a job opening. And she says, like, you have that college degree, you're very qualified. You should go down there and you should apply for this job. So I went, and it was a hybrid job, sort of like in hybrid, meaning that I was I was hired to run their young adult program, but also I was a part of their advocacy team, which also did advocacy work around Philadelphia and nationally, helping people with all types of disabilities in like different issues. So we also learned how to do like direct actions if negotiations fell apart. So I got to learn how to sort of sit in meetings with leadership from, all aspects, right? So heads of school districts, big, decision makers, and see how negotiations actually take place, give and take. And then when that stuff fell through, what we would do, like, protest, whether it's like marches or going to the media, doing speeches, creating partnerships with politicians. So I got to learn a lot there, and we did direct consumer service. So all of my members I was available to them not 24, but every day, like our doors were open. So they would come to me. We would do peer counseling. We would do independent living skills. So you work directly with the people that you were serving. And that really hit that bone in me that was sort of that military type of serving, giving back to my community. And I found that work very, very rewarding, when I was able to help someone, achieve something in their life, whether it was moving out of their parents' home and getting their own house, or, well, their own apartment. At that time, they're, in their 20s, or helping them set up a checking account, or, we taught them how to cook, or taking them to like a trip for the very first time because they've never got out of their house before. Now they have a friend group, and they can go to like Dave and Buster's, or, or down to Atlantic City for the very, very first time on their own. So that was very fulfilling. But then I got married. So then I left that job, and I moved back to New Jersey, Northern Jersey. And I started going through the same thing again, having to find a job. I applied for another independent living center type of thing in New Jersey. But I turned this job down, and I turned this one down in the interview process because of the culture I thought I was getting into. When during that interview, the person was telling me how they previously had someone that was disabled in that role, and some of the staff members were sort of not pleased with that person because they couldn't help set up the tables for the conferences that they may have, where they couldn't put the chairs away. And would I be able to do that? I'm like, yes, I've ran groups in my previous job. I have no issues helping out with that. And there's other questions like, could you come in and would you be able to do this? And I'm like, yeah, like, okay, you're supposed to be a director of a organization that's supposed to help people with disabilities, but it seems like you are sort of against people with disabilities here. Like,
Yeah, very limiting, it sounds
yeah.
like.
So
Yeah.
he offered me the job, and I said, although I needed the money, I turned it down because I couldn't go work for an organization like that didn't seem to really know what it meant to have staff members with disabilities as a part of your workforce and being able to make workplace accommodations for them and not have people make them feel less. So I went
Well,
like a
Paul,
year.
I want to pause there too, only because I like to highlight this. When you go on an interview,
Mhm.
obviously they are interviewing you, the employer, but just as much you are interviewing them and thinking
Correct.
about if you don't see that this could be a good fit. Because what you said was, as we all do, right? We all have bills to pay.
Yeah.
However, we also don't want to put ourselves in situations that are not good. And so I wanted to just highlight that for a second because I feel like that's a very important message sometimes. People with disabilities sometimes might just say yes and just kind of go with it. Even in your gut, you might say, I don't know that this is a great fit. So you turned it down. And I think, again, knowing yourself and just thinking about that confidence and valuing yourself and really thinking about, is this a good spot for me? I think that's important to highlight in that role as, again, you were discerning between that and potentially other jobs.
Yeah, and it's a good point. Yeah, it's not an easy decision, you know,
No,
not
no.
easy decision to make, but there's sometimes you just have to go with your gut, knowing that you're
Mhm.
not going to be happy there,
Mhm.
because of that environment. And I went maybe another 2 years without 2 years or so without having like a steady job,
Mhm.
because I turned that down sort of soon after I got to Jersey. But during that time when I was out, we had our first child, so I was able to stay home with her as my wife continued to
Mm.
work.
Uh-huh.
Um, I continued to then gain other skills, right? I started to
Mhm.
again keep up on my technology. I got an opportunity to do web accessibility testing for the governor of New York's website. I think David Petraeus, he was like the first visually impaired
Mhm.
governor.
Mhm.
I was approached to do web accessibility testing for his website. So I did that, and I continued to say, okay, this could possibly be a career, right? I got one sort of like gig job doing that, and like I got a little contract and bought in some cash. What is this, right? So I started learning more about it and what it meant, looking into like code, right? Reading code, being able to communicate that back out. Um, so that's starting that sort of trajectory for me. Um, and then again, I kept in communication with the New Jersey Commission, for the Blind, and then seeing what kind of career opportunities that they had. And I was also heavily looking through, Career Builder and all that different kind of stuff, just searching for job opportunities, and then learning about the stock market, just trying to find ways that I could sort of continue to sort of bring income and get skills that I can someday pitch back and work into a career. And then it turned out that something came through. I don't know how this job came. I think I saw it on one of the career sites. Um, two jobs actually. One was with the library in New Jersey, in Jersey City there, and then one was with the Developmental Council on the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. The one in Jersey, the library in Jersey was right in my city. Right, it'll be like a 15-minute ride. The one in um, with the council was in Trenton. I was going to have to take um, the path to the train,
Oof.
Northeast Corridor line, then take that to Trenton, then take a bus to the state building.
Oh no.
And it was part-time, right? And a contractor. But I'm like, I have a kid. I'll apply for it, right? And that was, I think, and the job that I was applying for wasn't the partners in policy making job. It was a different job where I think I would go to different schools and do trainings. I went and I interviewed. I didn't get that job. They gave that job to someone else. I won't go into the details and the politics around that, but yeah, I will. I will keep that there. I didn't get that one, but then I was offered the job to be the partners in policy making coordinator job. I took that one, and there's negotiations that happen with salary and things like that. And for me back then, I'm like, man, this is like tons of money. I think it was like 20 or $21 an hour for part time. I'm like, man, I'm making good cash now as a, so,
True.
Sure.
but it was, I would wake up 3:00 in the morning. Thank God Uber just started happening. So I was able to take an Uber to the path and get on the train 6:00 in the morning, first train out of Newark, and get down to Trenton to get to the state building. And I worked long beyond my part-time hours, right? Because I wanted to do all that I could do to make this program successful. I was in charge of the program and, creating the curriculum and things like that. So I wanted to give it my all. I was a part-time contractor, but I didn't treat the job that way. Because my goal was, they'll see my value, they'll see my worth. I'll get offered full-time position after a while. So I was working hard doing that. Tiresome, like very hard
I'm
work.
Just
sure.
the commute in and of
Just the
itself
commute.
sounds
Yeah.
and that's not even part of your
Right
your
job.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But very rewarding. And even then, like, I wanted to do outreach, sort of spread our outreach statewide. So I went to our director and was like, I would like to get a driver for the times that I want to go out to this different parts of the state, and be able to reach other communities that we weren't able to reach before. I was able to negotiate that and have that ability to sort of do that. And then about a couple of months, maybe half a year into that, I don't know how I saw the job with Advancing Opportunities, but this technology specialist came across, and I'm like, wow, this is right down my alley, because my career up to then has been helping people with all types of disabilities, right? I really hadn't up to that point in time directly worked with the visually impaired community. And I was like, this is going to be the perfect time for me to actually give back to my segment of the community, right? Awesome. I was like, all right, I'll apply. And I always tell people the best time to apply or look for other jobs is when you have one, right? Because,
Yeah.
Yep.
if you don't get it, at least you're not there sitting on the couch still, like, and you're not going to settle for, for less at that point in time. But again, this one again was a part-time position, right? It wasn't full-time, but again, I saw it as another step in my career, right? I saw it as, it
Definitely.
it might have not been my ideal or everything I wanted, but I saw it as another wiggle through the obstacle course to get me to where I don't know, but it's something more. I'm getting more skills. So I got that job, got over to Advanced Opportunities, and it was awesome. I got to play with technology. I got to, once again, serve people, right? That's how I approached the work that I did there. Is not a job to me. I took it personally, and sometimes not to my benefit, because you take it personal, like what you see some people struggling with or what they're going through. and you're trying to sort of help them and some of the barriers that happens there. And you do get to learn your skills on
Mm-hmm.
how to work cross, not even cross functional, because you have to work across agencies, right? It's not even within your own company. It's working with other state agencies and working within their bureaucracies, different, I don't want to say motivations, but different goals, right? Or different ways of doing things. And one thing I've learned, and I sort of harken this back to sort of my military mindset and some of the great supervisors that I've had um, throughout my career, and especially at advancing opportunities there, as well as you may not have, you don't have to like it,
Mm-hmm.
but we got to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll listen to, hey, this is crazy. I don't know why we're doing it this way, blah, 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 blah. They'll hear you, but they're at the bottom, at the end of the day, we got to go execute, right? Like we got to execute. And then maybe when we get the opportunity to help it change, we can help it change. So I've learned a lot of skills that way. And then like having to like manage, because I had a driver at that point in time. I had maybe one or two drivers, and you're in tight confines with the person. So you have to sort of get used to their personalities, and you have to sort of manage them because you're using them to help you to complete your job, right? So you have to get to your clients and things like that. And you have to rely on this person, and you have to, so you then get to sort of learn how to manage, how to communicate, how to then communicate things that the person may need to work on back to your leadership in a way that's not critical. They have to give constructive feedback with solutions, right? And you learn to not just bring a problem, but bring a problem and bring a solution, right?
Definitely.
Never just throw crap at your boss's door. They're not going to like that, right?
No, they don't.
Well, and did that help you with when you moved on from Advancing Opportunities, when you went to Verizon and Visa? Did that help you
Most definitely.
being able to know how to deal with the human, right? I don't know, right?
Most definitely, yeah, it definitely. That the work that I did at Advancing Opportunities really laid a foundation for the corporate work that I did, right? Although Advancing Opportunities you wouldn't consider it to be corporate, it was like, I guess, a nonprofit type of thing, or let's say like a smaller company. It gave me great foundational structures and skills that I learned there, right? Again, I went back to what I said way back in the beginning. Like, you don't have to come to a company with expertise. You can have some knowledge of what things have to be, but then be able to be taught, right? Be able to be taught and shaped and learn, and then apply. So I learned a lot from my teammates at Advanced Opportunities, from my supervisor at Advanced Opportunities, that I was then able to take and apply at the next level. So again, I was approached by a recruiter from Verizon to come and be a part of their accessibility team. And I think the reason why this happened, because as I was still at Advanced Opportunities, I started getting certifications in accessibility, web accessibility. So I was taking courses, learning how to do it, learning how to read code. I was doing like side gigs with another smaller company that did user-based testing with people with disabilities, for other companies. So I was learning a separate skill from what I was doing for my main job. So I would work and I would go home and I would learn another totally different career. But at the same time, I was then able to bring that value back to Advancing Opportunities. So when opportunities came for us to do work within that space, my direct supervisor, which was Vanessa, was able to tell our director, like, we could take that business because Paul's been doing that. So again, because I sort of took that initiative, I was able to then bring value back to the company. And I will say I was able to move from part-time to full-time at Advancement Opportunities through hard work and just going out there and, not complaining, right? Just going out there and proving my worth, I guess you'll call it. But because I was able to sort of take a passion of mine that I had and then bring that back and fold that into the current work that I was doing, I was able to sort of help our company. And then I guess that work also then got the eyes of a recruiter for a corporation that bought me in. And I had the interview, and as I was walking out of the office, I was basically offered the job.
That's awesome.
To come and work there.
And I was going to say, Paul, the other thing, again, to just highlight that, which is you were doing a job, you were doing it well, as I might say, as the person who was supervising and working with you, but that you continued to upskill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I actually was just talking about this in a presentation the other day, this idea of we're all looking for improving and thinking about, listen, we're at this job now, we really like it. What else might I be interested in doing? So kind of thinking as it's not a static thing and kind of that continual, which you've talked about throughout this whole conversation, but again, really highlighting that you were doing work that you liked and doing it well, and you had this other interest and then pursued that, which opened up other opportunities. And I think that is something just is good career advice. I mean, for anybody, but certainly for people with disabilities, sometimes we get pigeonholed and we want to make sure that we're expanding our opportunities.
Definitely. And I would say don't wait for someone to tell you what your opportunity could possibly be, right? Like go out there and try something that people may not think a person with a disability or visual impairment would be able to do. Take that time that you have where you have a secure job to then experiment with that other thing, right? If you want to learn coding, well, it's the best time to do it. Do it on the weekends when you're, working at something else. So, and then when you get good at it, then, hey, that's a skill you have, whether you could bring it now back to the work that you're currently doing to get a promotion, or that's a skill that you have that you can then move on to advance your career.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap on another episode of AT Talks. A huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We love making this podcast and building this community with all of you. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. The team at the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ is dedicated to supporting educators across New Jersey. If you were inspired by today's discussion and want to bring high-quality, free professional development to your district, Vanessa and Madison are ready to help. To learn how you can partner with the center and build capacity in your school, head over to our website. You can find all the information you need at atcenter.tcnj.edu. And while you're there, we want to hear from you. Visit the podcast tab. There you can send us a question through our Google form, or even better, leave us a voice message on SpeakPipe for us to play live on the show. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all our latest events and resources. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube with the handle @ATCenterTCNJ. And don't forget to subscribe to AT Talks on whatever platform you're listening on right now so you never miss an episode. On behalf of Vanessa, Madison, and myself, Brian, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.